Hey guys. Hey Shayna. Hey Nancy. Got you a little far to my side, don't I? Pull you around the front. There. That's a little better. How you guys doing today? It's Saturday and I'm thrilled. Finally home. Work stuff. I'm home now for a while at least. So still have the stresses, but at least I'm not on the road anymore. So I'm pretty happy about that. And I'm still cutting a few of these things. Good, Shayna. That's okay. Yeah, if you guys are just watching, that's cool. I'm actually going to do a little bit of sewing on the quilt top today and talk about that. So I got a few things done, but not as far as I needed to feel like it was done. Hey, Liz, how are you? Thanks, sweetheart. So yeah, I need some real time, girls. It was a pretty rough week, let me tell you. I hate these last 2 weeks. It's always hell weeks. People get a little stupid and silly and mouthy and yeah, and I get to play the police and it's always not fun. So yeah. All right, so what I decided to do on this top, and you guys, I'm just giving you ideas. So if you go do yours and you feel like what I'm doing, you want to try, you'll know how to do it. If you're feeling like it's a little far out of your wheelhouse yet, that's cool too. Hey, Leslie. So yeah, you can still just do the squares, the rectangles, the triangles. Man, my brain's gone. The squares and the rectangles, or if you want to do a little more like what I'm doing, which is super easy. And I was thinking about that while I was doing this. I know everybody gets really scared and they're like, oh my gosh, that's so hard. That's so hard. I can't do that. I can't do that. Well, that self-talk that you put in your brain, you say you can't do it, and then you won't be able to do it. Now, think back to when we were in elementary school and high school. Did we get a choice about, oh, it's too hard, I can't do it? No, we had to do whatever it was, whether it's math, science, reading, foreign language, PE, whatever. We had to do it, and we had to try. And then a lot of times when we tried, we found out we could, or we had to try a couple of times, and then all of a sudden we got it. Kind of the same thing here. So don't tell yourself you can't. Just try. And you might be surprised when you realize it looks hard, but it's not hard. Hey, Angela. Hey, Juana. So what I did, and I thought about this while I was doing this morning real quick. Hey, Elia. Was I took the squares and I had sewn the white to the top like that. And then I put a bunch of them together so that they were all in one long piece. Well, I decided I wanted to go more towards a rectangle, and that's cool. You can do that. So what I did was I took that whole chain and I lined it up real nice so that my edges, when I folded it, and I folded it down about 3 times so that my edges were real nice and straight, and I whacked it down. And now I have rectangles. And then I've gone and put one of the long sashes alongside of it. So I have 2 right now done up. And I decided what I really wanted to do is I'm going to stay with the blue and green on this theme. And then I'm going to take the red and yellow and do the same thing. And if you hear some noise, guys, we've got a small storm that just literally rolled in. And it's going to be gone through here in about 10 minutes. It was like sunny out, one of those where it's sunny out, and then all of a sudden this big black cloud comes and you hear like 2 cracks of lightning and it's gone. I think that's what we're going to have. So I'm going to take and cut some more 5-inch squares because I'm using that charm pack, and do planes. So then what I plan on doing is I'm going to make these really stripy kind of. So I'm going to use the same color and the same color at the top. I'm not going to flip it around, make it random or anything. Then I'm going to put green, blue, 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 green, blue. And hopefully that'll be wide enough for a toddler quilt. Hey, Nancy. Hey, Sandy. Hey, Sarah. So I'm mixing solids in with prints, but yet using the same greens and blues so that it pulls it all together. And you see how it's already kind of pulling together because I've got this random every other one going, even though they've got different things going on within them. Your eye still reads that green and that blue because you keep telling your eye, here's a green, here's a blue, here's a green, here's a blue, whether it's going across or going up and down. So that's my next thing that I'm doing. And I really, really like solid quilts. I think they're beautiful. So the solid colors, you do all solids with a white. For some reason, I think they're really striking. But I wanted to use up some of my prints, and these are cool too. So I'm going to put a little bit of what I love in with these prints, and I bet it's going to be kind of cool. And it'll pull everything together for you without you even having to think about it or try. You know, you just kind of stay in the same, whether you go lights, mediums, or darks. And it's kind of hard to tell that this one goes because it's got a lot of white in it, but it's the same value as like this blue, and this green has a lot of white and it's the same value as that green. So they work. It doesn't have to be exactly the same, but you know, within that shift just a little bit and you'll be okay. Aw, Nancy, you can do one really fast too. If you do just the squares and you don't want to do anything other than that, get yourself one of these charm packs that I was talking about last time. And they're pre-cut for you and you just sit and sew. And if you wanted to do plain ones in between, so say you wanted to do like I'm doing, but you just want to do it with the squares, they'll have charm packs of the plains as well. So you don't have to cut anything. You just bring home and sew and you're done. Yep, strips from Joanne, Sarah. Yeah, there's all kinds of choices out there, guys. Just you probably haven't noticed them because you weren't looking for them, and now if you go looking for them, you'll be like, oh, they've always been there. Like, where was I? You know, I do that all the time, so don't feel bad. But so I'm cutting yet because I want to do these solids. So if anybody else is still working with me, that's what we're doing. I don't want to push you guys too quickly in this first series. First of all, I needed to get off of the road. I needed to get back home. So it was hard for me to have things done ahead of time. So it worked out really good because I don't want to push you guys. I want you to work with me or ask questions if you're just watching while I work. And then the next one will maybe go more into here's what we're doing. You guys already know kind of how it goes. Let's try and have more things complete, or you catch up to me or something by the time that the next one comes in, so that maybe we can do cutting, the sewn top, the piecing of everything together, and then the finishing, so that maybe we do 3 to 4 series on all the ones going forward. Oh, good, Sarah. That's okay that if it's just a little, that's all right. And we're going to show you how to square that up, because you can square that up. It's one of those where, yeah, maybe some of them it's going to show. It's your first one. Don't be so hard on yourself. It's all good. No, Sarah, don't wash it yet. No, we're going to wash at the very, very, very end. So once we get it all completely put together and it's like, you're done, you're done, you're done, you're done. You're not. Your last step is you throw it in the washer and then you throw it in the dryer, and you get it. That gives it that really nice, soft look. And it just kind of gives it a lived in look that everybody loves. Plus, then, you know, if there's any oils from your hands or from the machine or anything, they're off, and you don't have to go do something one more time and then, oh no, I've got to wash it again. No, at the very, very end, we wash. Yep. Yeah. You know, you don't be so hard on yourself on these quilts. They're meant to be one of a kind. They're meant to maybe be a little wonky. And if they do end up being wonky a little bit, we can make that look intentional. So don't be hard, because if for some reason you've kind of got yourself a little so that you wanted it straight, but it's kind of just, so you wanted it straight, but it's kind of more like this, then what we're going to do at the end before you put everything together is we're going to go back and make that look a little intentional, okay? So that when you pick it up, everybody's going to be like, that's really cool. How did you do that and put it on just that little bit of a diagonal? And you're going to be like, magic, magic. And nobody's going to know. But it's super easy to make it look intentional. So do not be hard on yourself. Yep, Angela, once it's done, completely finished. I am, Leslie. I'm done. I was done yesterday. Yeah, I didn't get to see you guys one more time. I'm bummed, but we'll figure something out, because I know Cindy wants to come down, and maybe you can come down with her or something. We just got to figure something out. I'm still just trying to decompress from this last week. It was between that and then again, last night when I drove home, those of you that know when I was driving home, again, the rainstorm, couldn't see. I'm done. I'm done driving in rain. I'm done. I'm like, really? Can I not just drive once home and drive with her? So crazy how much rain we're getting, guys. And we never get this kind of rain. And I know we shouldn't say anything because July, we're going to be crying for rain. There's going to be none. And now we're just getting buckets and buckets and buckets. I know, Leslie, I would have loved to have seen you guys too. I wasn't getting back to my hotel until 7:30, 8 o'clock at night. And then I had to be back out on the job site about 6:37 the next morning. So it was tough. These were our hell weeks. So yeah, that's just crazy. Yeah, we'll talk about that too, Angela. We'll talk about how to put a personalization patch on. So that's why I'm saying this one could be 4 or 5 episodes long. It just kind of depends upon how well we move through. I'm just kind of letting it evolve on its own this time and see how many we have to do. Sarah, we'll go over that. We'll go over that. I usually piece my personalization patch into the back of it. You guys don't have to. You can put it on the front. You can put it in a corner. You can put it anywhere you want. That's just how I usually do it. So yeah, we will talk about all of that probably next time. I'll go into the patch with you guys next time. So if you are thinking that you want to do a patch that you piece into the back, then just go ahead and figure out how you're going to do your back. And we'll talk about that here a little bit later into the episode on how the backs are going to go together, because I want you guys to work on that this next time if you're caught up like Sarah is. And then you can decide if you want to do just one single piece on the back, and you can do that, or if you want to piece it together. It doesn't matter how you want to do it. Yeah, and like I said, everybody's got their own preference on how they want to do their quilt labels. So there is no wrong way. Absolutely no wrong way. And I have several different ways. In fact, I've got one way that'll blow you guys' mind that you can do on your computer and run the fabric through your computer and print it. And so it's already on your computer, and you just got to prep your fabric and you run it through, and just natural ink, nothing special, just natural ink. It's how you prep your fabric. And so you can have it already. If you want to do a couple of these, you set it up once. And then if there's a part that you change, like the date or the to or whatever, then that's all you have to do is go do that and then print out your label. So it's pretty sweet. Hey, Evelyn. Hey. All right, I need to keep cutting instead of just talking. Told you guys I needed some girl time. Those of you that were on the chat the last couple of days have been dealing with me going, I need girl time. This has been horrible. Not that it's horrible, but it just is what it is. That's all I'm going to say. It's just craziness every single time. And sometimes it's just worse than others because it seems like it just doesn't stop. So this one wasn't quite as bad. Could have been a whole lot worse. Could have been a whole lot better. So, but at least I always know what's sort of coming. So I'm somewhat prepared for it. I guess oh, it is raining. Oh yeah, it is. It's raining pretty good out there. So I say I thought it just passed over and didn't rain because I heard that one crack of lightning. So at the hotel, they have a lot of trees, so it's really hard to not park under a tree. And of course, the birds love to be in the trees. So you know where I'm going here with my car. So I had, unfortunately, a lot of that all over my car. And I thought the drive home, the way it was pouring, literally just flat out pouring, that my car would be super clean. This morning I walked out and I'm like, okay, only about a half of it's gone. How? How could it rain that hard and not get my car completely clean? Hey, Marissa. All right, so I've cut my blue. And I think I'm going to cut a little bit more of this green because I don't know that I'm going to have quite enough cut. So just a little bit more here. So we always seem to have shenanigans happen just because of stress too. We'll do stuff to kind of just release stress or whatever. And I can't tell you some of the shenanigans, but one of them was actually really sweet. We have, at the entrance to the job site, you have to have a COVID check-in still. And this, I don't know how long this will go on, but we'll take it project by project. But we hire temporary nurses to do that. And so the nurses are only there from the time the project starts till the project ends. Well, this project was, man, I can't even remember, 10 months, 11 months. What is today? Today's June. Probably about 10 months, a good solid 10, 11 months. So we got to know each other really well. And we have a really nice Christmas party that we'll have in the trailer. And so we invite everybody that, like the COVID nurses will come, and we'll have all of our staff and their spouses and their kids. And so by the time we get most of the staff, it's not the subs, it's just our direct staff. So by the time we get everybody in there, we've probably got 30, 40 people. And so the nurses bring their families in as well, and sometimes maybe 50, but I think this time we had about 25 to 30. And it was a nice Christmas party. I mean, we just bring in a meal, and then there's a gift exchange, and we just have fun. We have music, and everybody just chats and goofs around and just has a nice evening. We have a background up, and you take some nice pictures with your family and stuff. And so that kind of really got the nurses to be a part of our, if we want to call family, because that's what my company tends to call us, is the so-and-so family. I'm not saying what my company name is, but it's, company name family. And you're a part of the family. And a lot of people don't have that atmosphere at work, which is unfortunate because it really does get us through some of these really stressful times with each other. Because we'll get really short with each other when we go through these project closeouts. And it's not that we're mad at each other, it's just the tension is really, really high. Stress is super high. And so, people kind of lose their tempers a little easily. Well, the COVID nurses, their last day was yesterday as well. And so then the client takes over that program, and they have to administer it if that's what they feel like they still want going on. So they came in, and we had these really big cards that somebody had made out of a poster board. and said, you know, for each one of the girls, there was 3 of them, and said, thank you, so-and-so, and that the kids must have decorated it or whatever. And then on the inside, they had a place for every subcontractor, including us, to sign, and the owner's reps and everything. So the cards were like this. And then one of the subs, just one guy of one of the subs, went out and bought each one of the girls a vase with 6 roses in it of different colors. Oh, they were so pretty. I didn't know they were going to do that. And then somebody else went out and bought each one of them a gift card. Oh, the girls were just bawling. They didn't know that was coming, and they were just crying because they knew it was the last day anyway, just saying goodbye to everybody. And then they got that, and we got all kinds of good pictures of everybody, and it was fun. We were goofing and just taking pictures and releasing stress, but it was really sweet. And then the girls were like, but we're never gonna see you again. And I'm like, I know. That's the worst part about all of this, is you don't get to see us again. So bittersweet endings to these things, as always. But we go through this every time, depending on how long the project is. Hey, Dolphy. Yeah, grab your drinks and get comfortable. I'm in a chatty mood today. This one's not probably going to be a short one, so I understand if you guys got to leave. Totally understand. And then don't forget, tomorrow is the sew along for those that are still in here. It just kind of worked out that I had to do them back to back. I'm not going to do that normally, but we're doing that animal shaped pillow. And if you didn't see the pattern that I picked, oh my gosh, it is so cute. I couldn't believe I found that. And it's going to be so easy to make it any size and use pretty much any fabric. I should have put up that you could put Minky on there. I didn't even think about it until later, and I've already posted it. So, yeah, if you guys have Minky, you can do anything with this one. I mean, you can use scraps and make it like a patchwork. You can do whatever you want. He is, if you haven't seen him, he is so cute. And I love the way they designed him because he's super easy, and you can spend the time making his face and his whatever really fun, or really whatever you want, modern or patchworky or however. So the more I looked at that pattern, the more excited I got, because I was like, we can make him this big, we can make him this big. You know, it's just a matter of blowing the pattern up if you want to make him bigger so that he's even more squishable, whatever. And I think we can also use him as a base pattern and turn him maybe into some other things too. So my brain was going crazy when I saw that. I was trying to use that as my decompression this week, and it worked because I was so tired. When I got back to the hotel, I'd crawl into bed and log into the computer and try and find a pattern. And like you always know, I try and find free ones if I can. And I couldn't believe I found him. I was like, oh, he's perfect. He's more than I was even expecting. So yeah, it'll be fun. Tomorrow night will be fun. I haven't made mine yet. That's going to be tonight. So yeah, I'll be doing him tonight. I'm excited. And I've got a baby shower to go to in a couple of weeks. So he might be part of the gift for the new baby. All right, so I'm just trying to cut up these 5-inch blocks, guys. Is anybody running into any problems with their quilt top? Any questions anybody's having? I know Sarah said hers was wonky, and we're going to definitely figure that one out, you guys. I've got a solution to just about everything for you. So I'm not saying I got a solution to everything, but just about. And I'm ironing. That's what I'm doing off to the side. Remember, I'm telling you guys, no matter what you're making, no matter anything, iron, iron, iron for your best results. Iron, iron. Yeah, Julie, that's kind of what I thought. At first I wasn't planning. And then the more I thought about it, I'm like, he would be so cool because I can even embroider like the baby's name on it or something before I completely close him out. Or I can do even a patch and put on him that has the baby's name or whatever. So There's just so many things I can do and just make him so fun. The thing is, though, I may have to make one for the baby's bigger sister. I was thinking about that too, and I'm like, the baby's bigger sister is 2.5, I think. And I was like, oh, I better make one for her too. So I may make 2 of them. And I know Mama would love that if I did that. And I'm sure Big Sister would love that. So. Liz, no doubt. You know, that would actually be probably a good thing to do with your HTV or something. You can easily make just little saying pillows like that, and those are so awesome. That would be so funny. You know, if you know the people whose house you're going to, you'll get that that's what they mean, but you'll also not take it offensively because you know they're kind of comical. So, Sarah, okay. Yeah, I got to post it to Facebook yet. I just realized I haven't done that. So I'll post it to Facebook after this is up. I totally forgot I hadn't done that yet. I don't know if I've got it. Maybe I've got it right here. Hang on. I might be able to grab it. Let's see, I've got it. I usually try and keep it open. Oh, I bet it's in this little one. Hang on. There you go, Sarah. It's that one. And then you guys, if you haven't looked yet, but yeah, it's in my description. And yeah, I haven't posted it for you guys to know if you know what I'm talking about, but I'll go look right now if you want. And hey, Mary. Hey, Sierra. That's okay, Sierra. That's cute. All right, so I've made all my ones. I've just got to put the white on. So I don't know if I have enough white cut. I may have to cut some more. Nope, I don't. Those are too short. One nice thing when you do the strip cutting, you can cut a whole bunch of these all at one time. Once you've cut your big strip, you can easily just cut a lot of them. Okay, so for those of you that just came in, I'll go over this one more time, what I'm doing. So I took the squares with the white that I'd made last time and like this and pieced them all together. So, I'd done the white on the top and then pieced them like that. And then I did just a single at the top. So now I decided I wanted to go to rectangles and not squares. So I took that big long piece, folded it in thirds, made sure everything lined up really nice all the way, including my seams, and I sliced it in half. So I had 5-inch squares that became 2.5-inch. And so I put the white strip on one side, and then I'm going to do the same thing with these solids. Keep them green, blue, green, blue, green, blue, and do those in between these pieces. So you'll have a solid, and a solid. And then I'm going to see what that measures. I'm running out of print, and I don't know that I've got enough to do one more strip. Because I've got 3, 4, and I need 9. So I may have to get creative And if I have to get creative and want to do one more, then this one will get interspersed. So I'm not going to put anything together until I know what's going on with this one, because then I can kind of make it looking like I was meant to do that and throw in those other fabrics and do the strip, like one strip, then that one, and then the regular, and then that one, and then the regular, and then put the solids in between. So if that made any sense, but you'll see what I'm talking about. But anyway, that's what I'm doing right now. I'm going to do a little more chain piecing, as we call it. And if you guys have any questions about anything, let me know. Faithful Janome going. And I do press these hard. I finger pressed these last time, remember? And then I took them over to my iron and I hard pressed them before I put the white strip. I'd done the whole chain and then I hard pressed every one. And then I came back and sewed the white one on. And then I hard pressed that open. So again, press, press, press. You and your iron are going to become very, very well known with each other. Okay, Liz, that's okay. Yeah. Yeah, find that pillow real quick so you can come back. If not, maybe I'll see you tomorrow night, Liz. I hope you have fun with your company. Yeah, I think we all do the mad dash on the cleaning. We all get really good about just cleaning the spaces we know they're going to be in. And then the rest of the spaces get a closed door with everything shoved in it, you know, or am I the only one that does that? So now that you guys all know my secret, if anybody comes over, they're going to be going, closed door, let me guess. And I'm probably going to be like, yep, guilty. Yeah, the nice thing, though, about doing the squares and then cutting them in half like I did, I get 2 strips done. So it's still the same size as if you would leave the block together and not cut it in half. So I'm not getting anywhere any faster. But what I am doing is I'm not sewing the cut rectangles. So I'm saving time there. Hey, Mina. Okay, good. I'm glad to see I'm not the only one that does that out of sight, out of mind type of cleaning. Yeah, I was when the go back to the story from yesterday. The COVID girls were so funny. They absolutely loved Ember. And so whenever I would pull in one of the girls, because we always did it right in the car, so you pull in and they just come out real quick and take your temperature and give you a wristband and all that. And this one girl would always bring Ember beef jerky the last couple of weeks. And so she'd give her a piece of beef jerky. And I'm looking at her going, oh, great, you're starting something I'm not going to be able to keep going. And so they were taking all these selfies with my dog yesterday too in the office before they left. It was so cute. And that was making them cry too because they all just adored her. Yeah, I know, Sandy. Isn't that the truth? I think that's kind of where a lot of us are. We're not going to know what to do when we do have company. Hey, Patty. I think it's going to quit raining here pretty soon. Maybe we'll get sunshine. I'm just dying for some sunshine. So I had to walk the site yesterday for just some final stuff that we're doing. And I was walking with a couple of people. By noon, guys, I had 15,000 steps. By noon. I was like, I finally sat down and it was just like all of a sudden it hits you how tired you are. And you just need some food and just a little time to recoup and you'll be okay. But I opened up my app on my phone that tracks my steps so that I knew how many. And I set it for like 12,000 as a goal, which I never make. Occasionally I do. Well, I didn't realize it had like this big sound when you make your goal, because I opened it up and it goes around and it's all of a sudden boom, 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 all this alarms and everything's going off. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then I started looking at it. I'm like, oh, wow. 16,000. I mean, it was 14.5 and then it got to 15.5 and then I think I was at 16 and I don't know where I was at last night when I finally got home. But I was like, wow. And I feel really good too. So it's like, I wish I could do that every day, but man, that's a lot. And that takes a lot of time too. So sorry, I'm looking at my ceiling. Oh, that's nice, Mary. That's a beautiful day. If it's only 44% humidity, that's really a beautiful day. Okay, I just ran out of my white. I have to cut some more. Man, it's still just booming out there. So I had looked at my weather app right before I started driving home, just to see, am I going to go through what I went through last week with all the rain and storms and stuff? And it was like, no, you're good. Well, it lied. And still, even when the storms were coming and I was able to kind of quick like glance at it, it didn't show them. And I'm like, I'm driving through some pretty intense stuff and you're telling me there's nothing going on? What's going on here? So I was kind of disappointed about that because it took me a little bit off guard. I had one that I didn't have. When I flip them over, because I'll sew them with the white like this, when I flip them over, sometimes I'll notice that I might have followed the white and it wasn't 100% straight. So then I'll just re-sew one more time and make it straight. So that's an easy fix real quick if you're worried about your seams or whatever not being perfect. Because like this one looks like it's a little skinny because the white was over just a touch further. So yeah, I can correct it and that quick. And that's one quick way of me checking too right now to make sure that everything's going to go okay as I put the quilt top together. Because unfortunately, your seam, the amount of the width of your seam really does matter. It's not like it has to be extremely perfect, but if it's slanted and you keep doing that, even just that one, it's going to show more than you realize. So just take the time to go back and sew it straight. You don't have to rip it out. Just go back and re-sew it again and make it straight. And it takes a couple of seconds and your quilt top will turn out really nice. And I'm just saying, it's little tricks like that that make a difference on how nice it turns out at the end for you. And that's okay if they're never perfect. We're gonna deal with that too, Mary, because in our reality, you can be known for having the coolest quilts that are just a little wonky, and you can capitalize on that and make that your trademark. And there's nothing wrong with it. Nobody says they have to be done perfect and straight. It's like an art form. You do you when it comes to the way you execute some of this stuff. If you want it to be really traditional and natural, not natural, really traditional and according to all the way that the traditional quilts are done and everything, then yeah, everything's straight, and then you take the time and make sure everything's straight, and then you follow those rules. But if you want to do more of a contemporary modern look, you can totally do a wonky quilt, and it's perfect. There's nothing wrong with it. And no two will be the same, and that's okay. That's what some of these contemporary or modern quilts are all about. They're never the same. Hey, Sandy. Mary Wonky Quilts. Yes, Mary. And if you go out and you look at some of those contemporary quilts that are out there, you're going to kind of see what I'm talking about. They'll do a lot of just mishmash of things, and they're really interesting. So nobody's saying that you have to adjust. If it just doesn't work for you, then embrace it. Or if you're doing one that is kind of traditional, you're trying to be that way, and then no matter what you do, it just isn't turning out that way, make it contemporary, make it wonky. And all of a sudden, you're having a lot of fun sewing it, knowing that at the end, you're going to intentionally take it that direction. Hey, Nero. That's cool. I'm all right with everybody listening in. I said, I need some girl time. I'm hard pressing my seams open right now, guys. So that's why I keep bopping off and on. And I don't mind, if you guys don't mind, the fact that I'm still putting this top together, because you're kind of seeing a little bit of a process that I'm probably not going to go through on the next ones as much. So you're seeing what I do, how I cut, how I stop, how I iron everything, resew a few things. So you do see that that's normal. It's not just you. Remember how to start this one. Okay, I got green on both sides. Okay. It is still raining. I think we must have gotten a couple of inches in about 20 minutes yesterday when I was going through that storm. Because after I got through it, it's kind of a cutoff highway from one interstate to another that I take just to get me out of going through Austin, because I avoid Austin like the plague. So that road floods kind of easily. Not so bad that you can't drive through it, but you just got to be aware that when you hit a certain town, and if it's pouring the way that it's kind of laid out, you need to slow down. And thank goodness I'm not on the offsides, because there's a lot of underpasses right there that do flood right away. But after I got through all that, and there's a couple of really tiny, if you even want to call them towns, it's like you come up and there's like 3 or 4 blocks, and that's it, and a stoplight, and then you go on. There was a couple of those where the pastures right off to the side were flooded, like they have a pond, and I know they don't have a pond there. So it must have just really opened up right there. I was like, oh, it was no fun. Yeah, they always say everything's bigger in Texas, and even the storms are bigger. So yeah. Okay, now I'm going to piece together, and then I'll show you guys how I cut this in case you guys want to try and do this. It's super easy. It makes it look like you guys got real fancy and you really didn't do anything hard. So And you could stitch this as a continuous chain piece too, and put a bunch of your, if you're doing your solids, put a bunch of your two colors together and then go back and put those together as well. I'm just not going to do that because I'm going to show you guys what I'm doing here. So I'm going to quick like throw this together because I know I explained it, but sometimes you have to see what I was talking about. And I'm not sometimes real good at being clear. So I want to just show you. And I always take my time putting these together. Which one does that go to? Goes here. Stop and think this out so I don't put the wrong colors together. When I'm not talking to you guys, I don't have to think about it. But the minute I start talking, it's like I can't do two things at once. And girls are supposed to be good at multitasking. And make sure I land right here because I got to have a green on each end. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so now I got to do a single on each end to get the greens on each end. Yeah. Yeah, I feel you, Shayna. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, and of course I have plenty of those blue made up. I need one more of the green. Yeah, Mary, and maybe now you'll finish. We should inspire you to finish those. Oh, looks like the storm was gone. Now it's just kind of hazy out there and gray. So Leslie, you're in Sugarland. Did you guys go there for the weekend? Or is that, that's not where you're from. Is that where you live? I'm thinking Sugarland's over by Houston. Am I right? I'm not native, guys, sorry. That's okay, Mary. We'd like to see it and maybe, yeah, inspire you to finish it. And I'm kind of hoping that by doing this too, maybe if you guys do have some that are started like Mary does, maybe we will inspire you to kind of pull that out and finish it. All right, so I've got my strip. Now I'm going to hard press open the seams that aren't hard pressed. So I'll just be right over here. You guys will see me. Keep chatting. What else you guys got going on this weekend? I can't believe it's already Saturday afternoon. I got home last night. I think it was about 10. Didn't get going on the road as soon as I wanted to, so that's okay. That's no big deal. But makes for a quick night of sleep, though. When you get home, you kind of just want to crawl in bed at that point. I'm going to be really glad to eat a little healthier, too. We eat good, but it may not be super healthy. We'll eat a lot of barbecue and Mexican. And most of that's like takeout. Some Chinese we'll bring in at lunch and stuff. So it's whatever we can grab real quick and bring in for everybody so we can keep going. So it's yummy. Maybe not the healthiest we could be eating. So I'm looking forward to getting back to having salads. And I'm just so hungry for a salad right now. You guys ever get that too? Or after a while, you just naturally, your body's screaming for something that's green or whatever. Okay, so I'm going to show you guys now how I did this. So if you're wondering, I kind of followed you when you were talking about the folding and cutting thing. But I'll show you right now what I did. So I'm going to angle the camera down just a little bit so you can see. All right, so I have my long pieced together squares with the piece in between. So I take one end and just line it up to the other, just like I'm going to sew it together. And then I go back and just lay it down real nice. And when I was saying line up your edges, these are the ones that I'm lining up so I can get them as straight as I can. Okay? Oh, thanks, Mary. So it's like that. And then if you feel like doing one more fold is too much, then just cut it here. I'm going to do one more. And I take my time when I cut. I don't zip these real fast. Now, when you fold it one more time, you're going to start noticing where some of your uneven edges are. That's okay. It's all right. Just kind of do the best you can to get it as straight up and down, okay? So I know these are 5 inches, and to cut it in half, that's a 2.5, but I always double check. You've always heard that expression, measure twice, cut once. Well, a lot of times I measure 3 times and cut twice, but you know, I'm always measuring. Okay, so it's 2.5. So I always double check everything. and it looks visually right as well. So then I grab my rotary cutter, and I don't start from the end sometimes, because when I do that, sometimes it'll push it. And I don't know why, it just does. So what I like to do is cut my first cut, kind of a light cut right in the middle. And then I'll move my hand and still take it and go finish it up. Now I'll come back and do the second cut before I come down here. And then a lot of times it doesn't move it if I'm real careful and then start down at the bottom. I don't know if that's just me, but I've always had that happen. So that's how I cut mine. And so now I have two perfect rectangles. Look at that. Done. So to tell you what I was going to do then, to help you understand, and I got to get this end here. So here's my print. Here's my solid. And then I'm going to get another white piece and sew onto this, and then I'll have a print and then a solid and a print and a solid. So that's what I'm talking about, to kind of give my quilt a little bit of a different feel. Plus I'm running out of blocks. So I'm trying to extend this a little bit, and nobody will ever know I didn't have enough blocks, because I'm going to improvise and put some of those solids in there. And then it also kind of breaks up the quilt a little bit. Makes it easier to see each one of the patterns if you really want them to see the patterns on those blocks. Now my white that I put down the side, I have to piece, because the one width of that we normally fold your fabric in half and then cut the 1.5 inches, not quite long enough. So I piece it together, and then I'm going to make sure I don't put that seam at the same location when I sew it to here. So a lot of times you'll seam it, and then it always ends up, each one of them ends up like down towards the bottom somewhere. And then you're not thinking about it, and you go put your top together, and all of a sudden your eye can see exactly where you pieced it. So I'll take one and make sure it's down at the bottom. And then the next one, I'll flip it and put it at the top. And then the next one will be at the bottom, and the next one will be at the top. Or you can even get to where, if you want, you can slide one down, so one comes in the middle as well. So just make sure, don't keep doing the same location of those. Your eye may or may not pick it up. Once we get in, and if you do some quilting, it should hide it, but there's going to be some instances where you can't hide it and it's really going to pick it up. So I just want to let you know, make sure you always randomly move them around. Hey, Lakeisha, glad you could come on over and join for a while. And I've been missing so many people's lives lately. It's driving me crazy. I'm getting back into those now. I'm excited. Everybody's having some giveaways and everything. And I'm like, I got to get back to seeing what's going on. I feel like I'm off the planet. And I always cut my, if you notice on your fabric, on one end, you're going to have these little selvage edges, and some are thinner than others, and this one's got the dots and everything. And I don't want those to show. Those will be kind of evident. So I cut those off before I even start sewing. Thanks, Evelyn. Yeah, everybody hit the like if you haven't already. Appreciate that. Okay, so for, again, next time, not that I'm going, I'm just reiterating for those of you that are coming in. Figure out what you want to do for your back. We're going to talk about quilt labels, options for those, where to put them, options for that, how to make them, everything. And there's so many different ways you can make a quilt label. So we'll be doing the back and putting things together. So we're going to put the sandwich together next time. So make sure you have your back and your batting. And you can use, we've gone through the batting thing where you can do the normal bat that you buy, the normal quilt bat. You can do fleece, a real lightweight fleece. I've gone and, like I was telling you, we've used a sheet when we didn't want it to be super heavy. So that's an option. So just kind of have in your mind how you want to put it together and how you want your back to look, because your back can be one continuous piece of one fabric. And we may have to piece it together if it's not like wide enough or long enough, but it would still be like one fabric. Or you can take several different fabrics and piece together and just do a random piecing. It can be big pieces, small pieces, however, strips. You know, there doesn't have to be anything special to it. You just kind of randomly put a bunch of fabrics that coordinate with your front color, and we'll sandwich that together and figure out how we're going to do the label. I've got to stop and think here for 1 second. That's why my words were getting a little choppy. Oh, look, the sun's coming out. Yay. Sorry, little things. Let me think here for a second. I think what I'm going to do so I don't screw it up is I'm going to get this one on here. I want to make sure I do it right, because if I wasn't talking, I wouldn't be so concerned. Man, I'm still hearing thunder. Crazy, crazy, crazy. Now, when you piece together, and you've already opened up those seams, every now and then, and I still do it, it's going to close on you when you sew over it because it's not open. It's okay. You can just go ahead and finger press that like that, and you'll be fine. Just 1 second. I gotta send a text. So it'll be okay if they're not laying flat every single time. Just go ahead and make sure you press it over. When we start putting everything together and you quilt it, it's not going to really show. So it'll be all right. Yes, I don't put fabric content on quilts either. Nope, nope. The labels that we're talking about will be your company name if you're doing them to sell, so that people know where to find you. Maybe your website address will be on there and that kind of thing. Or if you're doing this as a gift for somebody, maybe you want to say something really sweet, or just to so-and-so from so-and-so and the date, that kind of thing. Those kinds of labels. You just have to decide what the quilt is for. I did a really sweet label for my sister's one for retirement, and it was probably, of course, hers was a queen size, but it was probably like about this big. And I had run it through my computer, like I told you. I'll show you how we do that next time. And I congratulated her on, I just did this backwards. I wasn't paying attention, so I got to stop and redo this piecing together. Okay, so when you guys piece together, I'm going to change subjects for a second. I wasn't paying attention, and I do this a lot. So anyway, you piece your long piece together, this white one that I'm sewing on. Well, I didn't put it the correct way, and so when I would have flipped it, the seam would have been on that front side. So all I did was cut it back off again, no big deal, right where I'd seamed it together. And I'm going to cut that completely off. And then I'm going to resew that back on. So I can stop doing what I'm doing here just by doing a frontward backward stitch to lock in my stitches. And I leave myself enough room to go back and put it back on the right way. I do that a lot. And I was going to have a seam there anyway, so it's no big deal. So don't freak out if you see that. That's how you fix it. And so now I'm just going to go back in and start with my front back stitch like we teach you how to do when you're sewing clothing. And it'll lock my stitch in and just keep right on going. See, I told you, talking. And I'm able to just finger open this. I don't really have to press it. Since that's on top, it makes it real easy for me to do that. And you do not have to lock stitch when you sew these together, the front back stitch. Just do a straight stitch all the way through. And then since I don't cut this before I start, I usually wait until I get to the end and then I snip it off. That way I know I didn't mismeasure and it does go the full length. And it doesn't have to be a perfect cut because we're going to trim all this up at the end. So I just snipped it off. You can see it's just a little bit higher than that one. So since I've got, and I don't have to press this yet, I can put my next one on, or you can press it if you want, if that, however works for you. So I'm going to put my solid piece on and show you guys what that's going to look like. And I'm just making sure everything, I got one that's off just a tiny bit. It's not really off, but it's like a 1/16 of an inch, enough to throw my visual part off of how wide my seam is. So I'm just trying to straighten all that out. And the good thing about putting this one on the top is I can hold all my seams open because I'm sewing across. And that's always an option too, if that works. But sometimes when you start putting some things together, there's always going to be seams that are underneath too. It just happens. I'm just lining up, and I'll show you what I'm doing here in a second. Forgot about that piece there, and I gotta pull it off real quick. Because this one doesn't have to have a white piece on it, and it's gonna throw it off if I don't pull it off right now. I made a whole bunch of these together, and then one of them has to not have a white piece, so no big deal. 2 seconds just to pull it off. Just to make everything match up. Otherwise, it's not going to work if I don't pull that off. It's going to be wrong. Okay, so you can see I've got solids and then the print. So the next one's going to be solid, then print, solid, then print. And I'll probably put a solid on this side as well, just because I have more solid than I do of the print, so that's okay. So what I was doing, when you start sewing these longer pieces together, you kind of have to slow down a little bit and match up visually these seams. Because what's going to happen is it's longer and the fabric's stretching just a little bit, and it's going to magnify how much it's stretching as you go down and you're sewing everything. And then you're going to be way off by the time you get to the bottom. So if you just take the time, and when you go, the first one will line up fine, and then the next one I just kind of start moving the fabric and lining up the next one to here visually. It may not be 100% perfect, but you just visually line it up. And so you're going to feel like you're scrunching the fabric a little bit, but you're not really. You might be just a tiny bit, but it's not going to show. You can't see that it's scrunched in this seam at all, because it's actually, you're bringing it back to where it's supposed to be, because everything, you measured everything, everything's right. It's just that the weight of it as you're sewing is pulling it down a little bit. So take your time and line each one up as you get to it. And I usually, it's the back that I have to move, because this is wanting to be, this one I'm sewing on is wanting to be a little bit further down, further up, I'm sorry, a little further up than where that seam is on the one I'm doing it to, because the weight is pulling it down. Take your time doing it. You don't want to zip through this. And you can do like these two together. And then I can stop and go do another 2 of these together and so on. And then come back and sew the 2s together. And then that way, all of a sudden, you don't have this big weight of quilt that you're holding on to until you start putting everything together. And then when you get to that final where you're putting it all together, that's when you're gonna have the weight. And I would probably, if you can, set up a table or something to the side and even maybe something in front. Because like this one, what I can do, and I've done this so many times, I'll take and I'll move the sewing machine way back and I'll literally be kind of reaching over, but then I've got this in front that I can lay all my quilt top onto. And so it's not hanging off the side of my table and pulling on it even harder with all the weight. So that helps control a lot of that for you. Oh, that's okay, Sarah. Oh, thanks, Sandy. Yeah, the colors, I love the blue-green combination. Always have. So now I'm going to do this one, like I was telling you. We'll put this one together. It would make a good table runner, wouldn't it? Yeah, it would be really pretty. And you can do that too. If you don't want to do a quilt, you can do a table runner out of this and we'll still do the same thing. We'll still put it together the exact same way, only you can make yours a table runner if you want. I would probably do the sheet then in the middle just to keep it thinner, but that way you still have a sandwich if you want to do a table runner. So yeah, there's a lot of options on this, guys, and we'll still employ the same techniques. See, sure, I'm starting with the right end here. Okay, here's my top, because I want everything to be the same all the way across. So I want to make sure my top is where it needs to be. All right, so now I need to put another white on. See if I can remember to pay attention to where this one goes. Okay, so to randomly move my seam, because I took my shorter white piece from the one that I cut off from the one I seamed before. I want to measure it on the one that I've done. Let me see. That's going to be the top. I may want to flip this. Oh, no, it's fine. So my other seam is right here, and this seam's going to land up here. So I'm good. I'm just measuring it by just kind of laying it from the top of this block run down before I sew it onto the side of it, just to make sure it's all good. Everything is not going to be wrong. And then let's see here. Measure on this one too. Yep, I'm good on that. I'm good on both. So, all right. And this one I'm going to put it on the bottom so that I can keep my seams open while I sew it together, rather than fighting it. Yep, exactly, guys. You know, and that quilt's going to mean a world to your child too. Just because you made it, it doesn't matter if it's perfect or not. All right. So now all I have to do is put my solid piece on. I have the other white on. Now you guys don't have to do these strips. I'm just showing you options. And you can easily just do squares, or you can do the squares and cut them like I showed you how to do here, and then sew them together as well, however you want. You know, and another way, if you wanted to do the squares and cut, you could even do a row of squares with a row of the rectangles, and a row of the squares and the row of the rectangles. There's just so many options you guys can do just with these two strips, the pre-cut strips and the pre-cut squares. So that's what I was starting with that for you guys, because it's really, that's the basics that you put everything together with. So this is the strips and this was the squares, and you can do anything. All right, now put this one on. Sew this one from the bottom up. Again, I've got to line this up now because of the weight. I'm going to go ahead and move my machine forward just a little bit and kind of show you guys a little about how I may just pull this up and plop it in just a little bit and let the table hold to it so it doesn't stretch as easily. All right, and yep, I got to take this off. Okay. I forget, I have to do it at the end. So since I cut that a little wonky on the end, I just got to make sure visually, and you can do it real easily when you go to line it up. You just make sure this edge right here lines up here. Even though this is wonky, it doesn't matter. Let me show you that a little better. And then just line up my other edges. And then I'm paying attention to here as well. So this seam, you can kind of see how you can line it up with this one as you're sewing, because they're wide enough that they just lay on top of each other. That's why I'm saying that underneath, I'm able to kind of pull it up and make all that work together and make it all line up visually that way. Hey, Anna. Hey, girl, how you doing? Yeah, I spend more time lining these up to get started. And then as I'm going down, I'll take my time with each one to make sure. Now see how I've got this kind of laying here so that it's not over the edge of my table and pulling down. That's going to help me with that weight issue of stretching your fabric out. Always make sure you set your needle to stop in the down position. That just helps you because your fabric doesn't move when you're aligning everything and messing around with stuff. And then I'll go down and go one further and make sure it matches up. That's where if you have to scoot your fabric just a tiny bit up, you can do it at that point and then catch it all, and you know it's somewhat matching up pretty good. And I may just tug tiny bit on the top one and push on the little one just a little, and it all works out just fine. You're not pulling very hard at all. You're just kind of maneuvering just a little bit, manipulating it just a little bit into place. If you find that you're really having to tug and things are you're really pulling hard, then you've probably got a seam issue going on, and you've taken one seam a little too big or maybe one a little too small. So you'll learn to sew a little bit further onto your table when you quilt, rather than at the edge like we sometimes do when we sew like clothing in that. A lot of times the clothing stuff will lay a little bit in our lap. You really don't want to do that on quilting. You can accidentally like lean against the table and then you're pulling on the fabric. And if you want to pin this, you sure can. You don't have to do it this way. If you feel uncomfortable, pin for sure. There's nothing wrong with pinning, ever, ever. I still pin quite often just to make my life easy. So don't think that that's something that you will eventually get rid of. You may not. So I don't. There's times I pin, times I don't. Man, it's still thundering out there. I thought it was done and over. It sounds like we got another one coming in. And we're just barely getting started into tropical storm season. I wonder what this means. If that means we're going to get more of that, or if it's just setting up earlier this year. Hard to tell. Okay, so now that as I get to the end here, I've got just a little bit I've got to play with to kind of get it to work out. All right. Oh, Mary. Okay, we'll play before Steven. Yeah, play with Steven. We'll see you soon, Mary. I missed you, so hopefully I didn't miss you completely. Watching what I was doing here. Okay, so now I'm going to press these open because I want to sew this one to that one. And I want them completely pressed open right now on the back so that I know everything's lining up really nice. Did I say I like to press a lot? But as you notice, just by visually doing it, it lines up really good. You don't have to really measure or anything, so long as you know you've cut your blocks at the right size, or you bought the 5x5s or 4x4s or whatever size you bought, and then you make sure that your seam is the same width, that you're always taking like 3/8 of an inch or 1/4 of an inch or 1/2 inch or whatever. You're always staying to that, and your seams are as straight as you can. Not, and the only reason I'm bringing this up is I'm notorious for this. I'll start right, and then it'll kind of sometimes go up or go down a little, and then you measure it, and it's like almost 1/8 of an inch off. So on one end versus the other. So that's the time that I'll go back and resew. But if you're just a skosh off, don't worry about that. And I've got to open up both seams on this now. So there's a lot of ironing on this one. I've got to go down it twice because I've got 2 seams now I'm pressing open. And I wish there was a trick to make this fast. There just isn't. You just have to learn how to press open a seam with your fingers and the iron. And sometimes it goes really slick, and other times it seems like it just takes forever. This is where you tend to watch a really good show while you're doing it, or chat with a friend. This is definitely one of those multitasking things where you can talk with somebody while you're doing it. I forgot my allergy meds this week, guys. Oh, that was not fun. I mean, I don't have them really bad, but it's just bad enough that you can get headaches and stuff at this time of the year from all the rain and the mold and everything. And after about a day of not being on them, yeah, that was crazy. And I thought I did really good this time in packing, and I didn't forget anything. I guess not. Can you guys hear this thunder? It seems loud, but it maybe isn't. I press mine open, Angela. You can press to one side if you want. That's another one of those. You're going to see some people say, "Oh no, it has to be pressed open," and others will be like, "No, to the side." You do what works for you. So I always press mine open. Don't ask me why. I just do. I don't know that I would notice a difference, just so long as you always do it the same. If I was doing a heavy fabric, so you decide you want to do a quilt that's not out of cotton, you're going to do something out of a heavier fabric because you want a heavy, warm quilt, that's when I think it will make a difference on whether you press open or press to the side, because your seams will get very bulky if you just press to the side. Or if you press open, then you don't have like 3 layers, it's 2, and it's a consistent 2. So that's probably about the only time I think it really makes a difference. So how did we get to June already, guys? Anybody know how that happened? I swear I can't believe it's June. It just feels like it should still be April. one I'm fighting with right here. There's no reason why, it's just fighting me. Okay, so I've got the one done. And you see how much easier it's going to make for me now to go and sew things together, because it's already, even when I'm holding it like this, you can tell it's pressed. It's not like this when I hold it and it kind of wants to fold back on itself. It's just going to make sewing so much easier, and everything, hanging on to everything, making sure everything lines up so much easier. Yep, that can be very true, Mary Beth. And I don't know that one versus the other matters until, like I said, you get to that really heavy fabric. And you guys all know what we mean by the bulk, because you'll run into that sometimes when you're sewing too, and you get to a couple of seams all coming together and it gets really bulky. That's the only time I think it really matters. Yep, absolutely, Mary Beth. I agree. I think it's whatever skill you learn first. I was taught to open seams because of that sewing. My mom taught me to sew when I was very small, and we were taught, yeah, always open your seams. And so I really do think it is just whichever way you learned. But since I've already started to do it open, I need to stay open. If I would have started going the other direction, I could have stayed that way. Yeah, you'd be surprised how some of those videos, Mary Beth, that you were watching, they sound really dull, but man, they are quite interesting, because I think they kind of go into maybe not necessarily historical, but origins of things. And that's where it gets really cool. And they'll talk about the whys and the hows. And it's really interesting to know where some of this stuff comes from, because there is such a cultural longevity to all of this. And there's times we're doing stuff and we don't realize that it was done for a specific reason way back when. And now we don't have that reason anymore, but we still just do it that way. And you're like, whoa, that's kind of neat to find out that there was a meaning behind that. Fighting myself here and working on the skinny end of my ironing board, so I have to move things all the time. And you don't realize you're fighting yourself until all of a sudden it just dawns on you. So who's working on Father's Day stuff already? Any great ideas out there? Unusual things you guys are coming up with? Almost done here, guys. Sorry. That's why I don't like to stop and do that all the time, because I feel like I'm constantly pressing. All right, so now I've got the second one done. So what I can go do now is I'm going to put these two together. And this is where I really need to watch my lining when I first get started, because I was cutting some of these white pieces off. So I got to make sure I don't follow that, but that I follow the right ones here. And I'm going to be kind of holding it up so I can see visually through and lining everything up all the way across, even though I've got a little bit of wonk going on up here. So if that wonk drives you guys crazy, stop before you do this, cut it straight, and then put it back together. Those are little steps that it's worth the time to do if that really bothers you and you're having a hard time. But yeah, lining up is always huge. You got to get started right on the right foot from the beginning. So take your time to make sure everything's lining up. Now I'm going to pull the weight off and just kind of lay it there. It doesn't have to be perfectly rolled up or anything. I'm just taking the weight off of it. And while I'm sewing, then I can stop and just kind of line everything up. And each time I get to where I need to line up, I'm going to stop and make sure each one is hitting in the vicinity of where it's supposed to be. And this is where if you have to pin, please do. Nothing wrong with that. And I would pin, if you're pinning and trying to line stuff up, I would pin even out here. I'd pin there and here so that you know when you move it around, it's being moved as one unit, not shifting on you. The one good thing about this white is it's kind of easy to see. And then once I get through that place I lined up, and I'm going to move everything around again, reline it up. This is the part where I spend the most time, is on my quilt top, just kind of messing around. The back can be a fun piece. Like I said, I can do something really calculated and lined up on the front, and on the back, I can just go crazy and have fun with it and just piece that together really fast. And it looks so cool when you do that, because then maybe one time they like the traditional really straight one, and then the next time they want to flip it over, and it's fun for them to have that one as top. So it's almost like they're getting two quilts in one. Now, I'm always really careful. If I have a piece of like one little thread, or like your fabric will fray and just a little bit of that will come off. When I'm dealing with this white, and this is a dark blue, if I leave that there and I put my quilt together, I probably will see that through the sandwich and will drive me crazy. So I'm always kind of cognizant if that one's laying there on a white piece. I mean, I'm probably still going to end up with one here and there. You just can't catch them all. But if you can catch them while you're going, I guarantee you'll be happy, because when you go put it together, you're going to see it eventually when you go to quilt it, and you'll be like, oh, I know what that is. And there, nobody's probably going to see it. We know it's there. You know, it's one of those deals. So this was funny. I told you guys I never go back and watch my videos. Never, never, never. And I never will. And so I caught something when I was on my channel, and it had all the videos lined up. And I always have like that, what I'm teaching up, not just a picture of me. So it's, you know, like that blank card, and it says what date it's going to be and what I'm teaching. Well, if you stick your cursor on that, then all of a sudden a part of the video comes up, and it'll play for like about a second or two. And then it keeps repeating, like, you know, like when we do those reels and the things just keep doing the same thing over and over. Some of those were so funny. I was like holding up the pattern, pulling it down, holding up the pattern, messing with it, pulling it down. And it just kept doing it. It was so fun. I got the biggest kick out of that. And so I started watching just the little clips that it would pull up. Oh my gosh, I was laughing, because you got to try it on anybody's video that doesn't have like even if it has a picture on the front, it's still going to do it. If you just put your cursor on it and don't click it, it kind of pulls up a little short reel. It's so funny. I know, I'm kind of wonky some days when that is what's entertaining me, you know, I'm a little stressed. Okay, just making sure everything's lining up all the way down too. Just doing a secondary look at it. When I start putting the big piece together, like I'm going to open this up, and so this will be like half of my quilt, and then I go to do the other half, and then I go to put those together, I will probably pin those, just because it's getting too heavy and too much for me to be able to manage, that everything's going to line up. So I will definitely go pin that, because even like right now where I'm at down here, it's just taking me a little longer to manipulate it. Down to the last here. Now, the other thing I'm going to tell you guys when I get done with here, I'll show you something. There's a reason why I also do not put my final white piece at the top on each one here. I wait till the end, because if I'm off just a little bit, I can correct it at that point by putting that white piece on and taking it in just about a 1/16 of an inch or an 1/8 of an inch or whatever, and it won't even show that I did that. Where if I put those on, I can't correct that as easily, and you're going to see just a little bit of this on the final one. So that's a good way to get back to correcting things. Okay, so I've got half the quilt done. And you can kind of see how that pattern versus the solid versus the pattern versus the solid is just real subtle. You back up and you see it, but you don't what you do. And it just makes such a nice little play with each other. And it's also a cool way to extend your fabric. Okay, so see here, you really can't tell, but I'm not 100% on right here. So this one, I gotta unfold it better here so you guys can see it. So this one doesn't line up perfectly with that one, just a little, it's off. But you're not gonna catch that because it's so close. So close. So when you back up, you don't see it. And then by the time you do your quilting on here, it's really going to blend in. So that's what I'm saying, guys. Don't be so hard on yourself if you're off just a tiny bit. It's not really going to show. It does look like a white picket fence. And I think that's kind of why I really like the whites on here. I've always been drawn to the quilts that have the white or the light, the grays, that kind of thing as the borders. I think there's just something so attractive to them. And even if, like I said, even if you do something that's a wonky quilt where it's not straight up and down, it's still really attractive. There's just something about that lighter color setting off all the other colors. And no matter what you do, I think it's just a really good background for it. Okay, so you now know what half of my quilt looks like. I'm not going to drag you through the other half of piecing it. I just wanted to kind of give you guys that. We're going to talk about what do I do if I get done and I'm really off. Like things are just, and I'm going to take it into a wonky quilt. Okay. So this is what I would do if I were you. So you got your quilt top. We're going to pretend this is your whole quilt top. I would go add one or two more sections to the side. Don't worry about if it doesn't match up. Just add it on, okay? Because we're going to need that little extra bit of width to be able to take and shift it and cut it so that you've got it cut rectangular to the size you need, but things are shifted just a little bit. So I would take it, and I'm going to move my camera so you guys can see what I'm talking about. And I'm just going to fold this and show you what I would do. So we're going to pretend that this is the top. It's just going to look like it's a little top. We use like this size. Okay. So we're going to pretend. Okay, there's my quilt. And it's not straight. You can see it's not straight. But we need it to be straight. And I've gone and added on, say, I've added like this one on. And my quilt needs to be a certain width. So what I would do is go ahead and let it be wonky in size. And you're probably not going to have this hanging out over here. So it's going to be kind of like that, okay? So you go and you cut it, lay it out, and you cut it so it's rectangle. And let this be wonky so that this goes to the side. And it's intentional, whether it be a severe or just a real subtle. And so when you cut it, then everything is going to be, let me get a piece of paper and show you. If I draw it, it'll make sense what it's going to look like when you're done cutting it. I just need a piece of paper here. I didn't think about having to draw it for you. So when you're done cutting, we're going to pretend this is your quilt top. And you've cut it this direction. But we're going to say your lines go like this. in your seams. Oh boy. My deer have learned how to climb stairs. That's all I'm going to say. Those little stinkers, I feed outdoor kitties, and those little stinkers are climbing 15 steps. And now I'm worried I'm going to have a deer falling down the steps, breaking its leg. And I'm trying to figure out how to stop that. Anyway, so this is now my quilt top. So if you see how it's going to be wonky then, but it's cut straight, but your seams are now intentionally going the other direction. So you're hiding the fact that maybe it's not perfect, and you're making it extra not perfect and exaggerating that imperfection and saying, yep, this is what I meant to do right here. And it's going to be really cool, guys. So then if you're scared to do this yet, lay it out, look at it several times, take some tape, like some masking tape, and put it along the edges and tape it down where you would cut it to see if you like it. And then that way, visually, your eye is stopping where that masking tape line is, or painter's tape, whatever you want to use. And you're not cutting it yet if you're afraid to do it. And then the minute you lay that out, you can move those a little bit and then use those as your cutting lines. And so you know that what you're cutting, you've already looked at, and you're like, I'm good with that. I'm just going to lay so if I've got my masking tape along this edge, then I'm going to cut on the inside of the masking tape or the outside, whichever you want to do. You cut along the edge of the masking tape with your ruler, and you know you've got what you like before you've even touched it for cutting. So super easy. And if you want to do that even just to change up your quilt and you didn't have anything that really made you want to do it wonky, but you like the thought of this, go ahead and just add a little extra to the side, turn it, and do your wonkiness. So there's lots of ways to play with this stuff. And doing the masking tape edges to help you lay it out before you cut is such an easy way to learn how to visually see maybe what you think you're seeing, but you're not 100% sure you're seeing it. And then give yourself the confidence to cut it and do it. So anyway, there's that. Any questions on that, guys? Thanks, Anna. I know I've kind of always loved blues and greens together. They're striking, no matter whether they're light, medium, or dark colors. They're one of those color combinations, kind of like pink and gold, or orange and purple, or orange and red and pink, or orange and pink, or orange and red. You know, those striking color combinations that really catch your eye. And I will post that on Facebook. I'm going to make myself a note about tomorrow's sew-along too. I'm going to post that for you guys. If I don't write that down, I'll forget again. You guys are quiet today. Yeah, next time we will definitely talk about the label and how to make that, all the different ways. I know I mentioned that earlier. I'm just reiterating again. We're going to talk about the back and how to put that together, and we'll put the sandwich together so that way if you guys are done, you can put your sandwich together and work on your label. Oh, Anna, does he love them? I don't know yet, Angela. I haven't 100% decided what I'm doing for the back. And if you guys just want to do minky, you can do a minky back too. You know, don't hold yourself back. If this is your very first quilt and you want to learn how to kind of quilt, so at the end when we put the sandwich together and we pin it all and then we go to actually machine quilt it, whether you're going to do simple quilting or whether you're going to do it on your embroidery machine or whatever. If you've never done it before, I kind of would shy away from the minky the very first time. You can do it later. I want you guys to get a good feel for how this all works because it will shift a little and we've got to work through that shifting. And if you've never put a quilt together and then quilted it, that shifting is going to drive you a little crazy if you've got the minky because the minky is going to shift anyways. And then if you've never done it, you're going to have unintentional shifting. And all of a sudden you might have some bulkiness in some areas where it's like all shifted in a big, like a bubble pocket. So I'm just saying I'd stay away from it the very first time and do a quilt that has a cotton back. Sarah, is this your first quilt that you're putting together? Awesome. Anna, oh, can you send me a picture? I want to see him in them. And I'm not going to post or anything. I just want to see him in it. Yeah, Sandy, I hear you. Low energy day. You guys are giving me the energy I need. I'm kind of dragging butt here myself. Yeah, Angela, that's no lie. No lie there. Always covered in thread and lint and everything. So Sarah, you'll need your quilt top. You will need whatever you're putting in the middle. So your batting or your fleece, you can do like a thinner fleece. Like there's times like at the end of the year, and I don't know if it still happens going forward, but the last couple of years, Joann's would put their fleece on sale like right around Christmas. I can't remember. I think it was right after. And you could pick it up for like $1 or $2 a yard. And I would go and buy like 3 bolts of it and use that as for my inside of my quilts because it was a little bit thinner. It probably wasn't the best quality fleece and I didn't care because it was going on the inside. I didn't want a thick, bulky fleece anyways. And so I would get like a white and an off-white, maybe a gray, a real light gray, because I would use the light gray on my darker quilts, and then I'd save the whites for like my one, if I'm doing ones that have a lot of white in it. And then I would have like 3-4 bolts of that, and it'd be like 30-40 bucks. And I could make so many quilts with that as my interior. So that's why I keep telling you guys, fleece. Sarah, if you've not done minky, I'm gonna discourage you if you've not done a quilt. And I just want you to be set up to succeed. That's the only reason I'm going to discourage you a little bit because we are going to go through the quilting aspect where we take it, and even if you just do straight lines, and that's probably all I'm going to do on this one because it is a straight quilt. That doesn't mean I have to, but I am just to show you guys that you don't have to get crazy fancy with your quilting and your quilts still turn out absolutely beautiful. And you don't have to have an embroidery machine that does all these fancy quilting for you either if you don't have it. You can still do some really nice quilting with a standard machine and get away with it. So that's the only reason I'm going to shy you away from it. I still have problems with my minky, and my problem that I ran into was my girlfriend that wanted the queen size quilt, super heavy quilt she wanted. We did a t-shirt quilt, very modern one, and I still have to look for those pictures. I know I keep saying this and that I remember that. And you really have to pin those quilts. If you're using the minky, you have to pin them so much to even be able to do straight line quilting when they're really big. And this was big and heavy. And it took me forever to finish that quilt because I had to pin so much. And then I had to make sure it wasn't moving on me. And it still moved a little bit. And you have to, there's a lot of little fudging you have to do to get it to work out okay. That she didn't notice a few areas that moved on me, and I did, and I knew where they were, but I was able to kind of fix it enough that it didn't really magnify itself, because it will magnify itself if you don't catch it the minute it happens, and you're going to spend more time trying to catch it and make it not move, and it's going to all of a sudden become this chore. So that's why, Sarah, I'm just on this first one. Okay, you don't plan on making another one. Yeah. How big is your quilt, Sarah? Let's go there then. Let's go there. Are you doing a little one or are you doing a really big one? Yeah, it is a little challenging to do the binding. It's not too bad, Angela. It really isn't. It's the quilting part that is the tough. By the time you get to the binding, you've got it really solid, and it's not so bad. Because I also, when we get to the binding, I won't just go straight into the binding. I will stop and we'll do one more step where I sew the edges. I just run a stitch around the edges just to completely solidly shut it for you, so that when you go to do the binding, you're not fighting with that as well. Just these little steps I've learned over the years make a huge difference in the way a quilt will turn out for me. Now, as you get used to doing quilts, if you decide you want to keep doing them, some of these little steps you will eventually lose and you'll quit doing them because you've learned how to handle the quilt. But to make yourself very successful, I'm just setting you guys up to have a very good first experience with it. I'm taking and adding a few extra steps that is going to make it so much easier for you to progress to the next step. How big is your quilt going to be, Sarah? Because if you're doing a littler one, like a throw, we can probably get you through it if you want to do minky. Okay. All right, Sarah, then I'll let you go ahead and do the minky, okay? It won't be so bad if that's the size, okay? So go ahead. You can do your minky. I'm not going to deter you on a smaller one like that because I think I'm going to be able to help you control that just by telling you how to constantly. It's going to be a whole lot of setting it up and pinning. So make sure when we get to that step, one thing I want you guys to definitely have, and I'm going to grab this and I'll show you. So we use these little guys to pull the elastic through on the pants and that. These little safety pins. Well, this is what I use when I pin all of my quilts together. And the bigger the quilt gets, the more of these I use. Now, a toddler one, I'm probably going to use most of these, 2/3 to most of these that is in this container. So this is probably 2 big packages that I bought at Hobby Lobby. So if you use your, if you get them on sale or whatever, get them somewhere, you can get them anywhere. Just get them for a really good price and make sure you get the bigger ones. You don't want the ones that are, I got a multi-pack in here and I didn't even realize I grabbed a multi-pack. This size is still okay. It's not the best. You want them big. Bigger is better. But this one is too small. This is not going to work. So I still use these when I get desperate and I'm running out and I have to have like maybe 5 more. So then I'll grab these rather than a straight pin, because a straight pin, it's never going to stay in as much as you manipulate, and then you'll end up stabbing yourself and then you got blood on the quilt. And trust me, I've been there. Okay. This is why I'm exaggerating on you, because I've done that. I got desperate and used some straight pins and they don't stay. I stabbed myself. I ended up having to get blood off of the quilt. So yes, you're going to use safety pins for a lot of things anyways, guys. When you're sewing, they're very useful when when something comes apart that you're wearing, so you don't have a wardrobe malfunction. You need these. You got little kids, you need these. Trust me, these are going to be put well to use. So don't be chintzy. Always buy the big bags and get 2. If you can, get 2. And that's one other thing that you're going to want to have. If next week you're not quite ready to put your sandwich together, but when we go to put the sandwich together, this is what we're going to use. And it will take you a while because I'm going to have you over pin. And I always over pin for a purpose too. So like I said, as you make more quilts, you can be the determinant on whether your overpinning is helping you or you can get away with less. Every time I don't overpin, I always get so mad at myself because something moved just a little bit and I'll find it like on the back. I can see where it kind of moved a little bit. Again, once you wash it, a lot of this stuff hides itself. So you're going to notice things more because it's perfectly ironed and it's not washed yet. So it doesn't have like that lovely little lived in look that we love our quilts to have. So the lived in look hides a lot of mistakes. It hides a lot of these things where if you shift a little bit. But the less we can do now, the better product you're going to have at the very end. And the one thing about quilting, when things start shifting again, it'll tend to magnify itself as it goes down. So we've got to catch that shifting immediately and get it back to where it's not shifting. And so you've got just that little bit. And I don't want to scare you guys off. It's just, this is the reality of making a quilt. And that's why I'm trying to avoid a lot of that for you by giving you extra steps and taking you into things like this. And I'm showing you how to prevent a lot of it. And then as you make more, you'll be fine. You'll figure out where you can lose a step, or maybe you'll find something, this works perfectly, I'm going to keep doing it, or I need to pin it this way next time because it helped me. I did it the other time and then I didn't do it. And I wish I would have, you know, little tricks. You're going to learn your own little tricks. There is no do it this way and that's going to help. It's, you learn your little ways things work. So yeah, next time we need your quilt top. Don't cut it yet, unless you're doing the wonky one. And if you're going to do the wonky one and you feel comfortable and you want to cut it after you've laid out with the masking tape or whatever to figure out how you want it to look and that you've got enough on there, or you don't have to add like another piece to it or something to make it wide enough to be able to cut it. You can cut it then if you want, but otherwise, if you're doing it just this way, don't cut yet, because I don't cut my quilts, the tops, until I've sandwiched it together. And I've done all of my quilting. Oh, flood warning. I guarantee it. Yep, flash flood warning. We've been getting just enough. My other phone will go off too. Sorry, that was my work phone. We've been getting just enough rain in the last week that the ground's just saturated. So any rain we get causes minor flooding for a little while. But I cut my top at the very, 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 very end. So unless you're doing the wonky one, don't cut your top. 2-inch ones, let me measure this one and see what it is. No, that's fine, Sarah. You got to know so you get the right ones. Yeah. And when you're buying a big pack, make sure it isn't a multi-pack. That's what I did on that one. And then I got all those funky sizes. 2-inch ones would be awesome, Sarah. Mine are 1.5 inches, and sometimes I wished I had them a little longer. So yeah, 2-inch would be perfect. Yep, especially if you're going to do the minky. Do the 2-inch. It gives you that little extra. So we'll put the sandwich together. We'll pin it. We'll quilt it. We'll basically run a stitch around the edge so that we've got the edge completely closed off before we put the binding on. But between the stitching around the edge and the binding is when I cut. So once I've got it completely stitched down and I can see everything is laid out the way I want it, so I've smoothed everything out 40 million times, any unevenness that I have may have saved me a little bit, or if I'd cut it too early, maybe the size of my quilt just went down because it ends up being about 1/2 inch short on one edge because I'd cut it and I shouldn't have. So then once we've got all that down, then we will square the quilt up by cutting it. And then we put the binding on. So that's the fun part, is when you go to square it up, because your quilt is almost done and you see how it's really going to look. And then you put that binding on. It's like putting a frame on a beautiful picture. It just adds to it. It is so cool. Now the binding, I'll show you a couple of ways to do it. I cheat. I do the cheat. There's cutting on the bias, and there's a reason why you do that. When I do toddler quilts, I don't do the bias cut. I just cut the strips like I do when I do the quilting and fold them in half and put it on. Because they're so small, it doesn't affect the quilt. The bigger the quilt is, the more it will affect it and it will stretch. But the smaller quilts, I don't ever have any problem with. So I don't take the time. It uses a lot more fabric. It takes a little bit more time to do. There's a specific way you have to do it to get it to lay right and everything, and seam it together and everything. So it's just, it is a lot more work. Now, when you do have to do it though, it's worth the work because you've done all this work to the quilt. And then if you don't do the binding the right way, when it's too big and it stretches out of shape, you're going to be so sad that it did that. You won't get it back, where the binding will hold it if you do the binding on the bias. But yeah, just my toddler size, throw size, even twin size, I don't necessarily cut on the bias. I will just cheat it. So bad of me, I know. I'm a true quilter would never do that, but I'm not really teaching the true quilting ways. I'm teaching you guys how to just do it so it looks right and looks good, and it's kind of cheater ways in a way. So don't turn me in to the quilting police. But yeah, if anybody's watching and they're a true quilter, I'm sorry. I'm not doing it true quilting ways. So anyways, that's what next time's going to be. It'll be about 2 weeks, maybe a week, 2 weeks. So those of you that are wanting to catch up, you've got a little bit of time to catch up and mess with your quilt top. And I got to figure out a backing for mine and finish the other half of mine and get it put together. And if you guys have any questions in between, then you know how to find me. You can send me a message on Instagram or Facebook or wherever, and I will get back to you and help you out. But any other questions, guys? Sarah, you already cut yours. It's all right. If you have, it's all right. And if you end up being a little wonky, and it's off just a little bit, we'll straighten it up before you do the edge. So we'll figure that out. It's all good. All right, guys. Well, live is again tomorrow night for the sew along, and then Amber's sew along is on Monday. And I'm gonna get to join you guys finally on Monday because I'm not traveling anymore. I'm so excited. I get to come to Amber's now. Finally, I usually had to be in bed by then because I had to be up at 4 o'clock the next morning to be able to hit the roads. So pretty excited about that. But hope you guys are enjoying these. The quilt alongs will be better. I'm sorry these are a little loose right now. I just got to get through this end of everything, and then we'll get through this one, and the next ones will be a little more, I'll be done ahead of time instead of trying to do these with you guys. So bear with me. I'm sorry. Anyways, I will see you guys hopefully tomorrow night. I hope you have a good rest of your Saturday. Hopefully my rain will stop soon and I can enjoy my outdoors, but we'll see. And I will talk to you guys later. Thanks, guys. Bye.